Yep. This is a great question. It's a very pointed question. I had to run it
I,
by my
are you
CEO.
allowed to ask it? Yeah, I'm allowed to answer this. Welcome back to This Week in No Code. I am your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pal, and it's been another fantastic week in no code and AI. We have a ton to talk about on this episode, and we're also bringing in a special guest, Andrew from FlutterFlow, to do a demonstration on FlutterFlow and all the things that it can do as well later in this episode. But before we get there, we're going to be talking about Zapier and all of the new AI stuff that they've done and released with their Zapier Canvas. We're going to be getting into Coda 4.0 and the AI stuff that they have introduced within their, new 4.0 platform. We're going to talk a little bit about human AI wearables that are happening and what this all kind of means. We can discuss Framer's Series C raise and kind of the momentum that they now have against their sales or going into their sales and so much more. So, David, why don't you start us off with the news of the
All right.
day?
Yeah.
How are we looking at with Canvas from Zapier, and what do you think about it?
Yeah. Interesting. Zapier, I don't know, whatever we want to call it. The Z team at it again. Zapier, probably one of the first no code experiences, lots of workflow tools. They came out, announced their alpha version of the Canvas product, which is basically building the zaps that we're all used to now in a more workflow format, more to do visually, commenting, more team and collaboration. One interesting thing here, earlier this year, they announced this AI language model to help you ask a question and say, hey, what do you want to do? And they'll put some zaps together and help you build these workflows. Now, one of the things they're also adding is increased use of AI and suggestions of where AI may actually benefit your workflow and your automation. And so they're highlighting things so that you can incorporate more AI into your workflow, focus more on teams. We're seeing lots of these visual canvas
Yeah.
orientation now.
And it's not only that, it's like you can prompt it, say, like, I want to build a Zap that will do this, and they will actually start to build those apps for you. And then they also introduced tables, which is like Airtable's thing of like storing data in a database and that view and everything. Honestly, it feels like they're coming after Airtable in a bit. It's that next
Yeah,
evolution of like keeping it really simple, but upstreaming in terms of additional functionality that you would normally expect from an Airtable. Like Airtable is still its own thing. It's its own table and database and all of it. It's still more powerful there. But I think Zapier is really getting it right in the sense of it's really easy. It's visual. You can just write a prompt and it will kind of get you started. And then has really good suggestion tools of like, these are the zaps that I think, and then you can have it like suggest you additional zaps for additional things that you can bring together, which I think they're doing a great job. It feels like one of those tools that you need to learn if you're just getting started with no code, like go to Zapier, and that click and drop, that click and build prompt thing will make it really easy for you to connect multiple things together to increase automation and just your life and
yeah,
quality of life.
yeah. It's really interesting. I think, you know, obviously Make is another tool in this automation space. I wouldn't be surprised if they come across with another language model, ask it a question, build some automations in it. The tables component is interesting. I think we're seeing lots of spreadsheet first database design, which is interesting. It's kind of limiting. We saw this, Honeycode shut down. They were a spreadsheet. Zapier is such a big company. Who knows how long ago they saw some of these ideas and started putting them into place. I'm a little nervous that they're spreading themselves bigger. I don't know if they're going to have the bandwidth and really the product to compete head to head with Airtable directly on a spreadsheet tool. But it's interesting to see how it'll be used in this, like, I guess, temporary store of automation.
Yeah, it feels like what other no code tools that have started at the beginner level is like, okay, we've mastered beginners. Now anyone can click and add a connection between the two. Now, how do we take that next level for those that are really utilizing this and need
Yeah.
it for their business at scale? That's where like these new features I feel like are coming in. So they're
Yeah.
making it easier with AI prompting, which I think every tool is doing right now. But then they're also adding advancements of like now you can actually take this data to the next level and use it in many different ways in like a shared capacity, which could give you a better quality of life with those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure where it goes. The thing that's striking me with all of the things we've been looking at, it seems like things are kind of starting to look very similar. Like Zapier was always different than everything else. And I'm wondering if like everything's kind of starting to consolidate and I don't know, homogenize in some
Yeah.
way. But it's
What if
all
like a
looking the
Zapier
same. And
Airtable
yeah,
acquisition?
yeah, I mean, maybe, or everyone's now competing with everyone else, and then it becomes harder to work with anyone. There's like more fighting over turf. Hey, you're a Zap user, not Airtable. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just interesting, but it's also just not unique, I guess, in some of these things. Uh,
Yeah, I think that leads us into Coda 4.0. So Coda is like a Notion
yeah,
competitor, but they're probably just more powerful. They focus on allowing you to build like the internal documents and spreadsheets that your team needs to use, but then really put logic and like power behind that. And you could do a lot with it. And later in this season, we'll bring on one of our Coda experts, Scott, the Coda guy. But right now, they launched 4.0, which essentially is unlocking AI across all of their documents and all their suites, which is like a knowledge assistant. So you can QA your own team documents of like, hey, I have, 100 questions and answers here. And I can just quickly give a prompt of, what does this do? And it'll kind of spit it back at me rather than doing like a search and find. So that's really cool. Writing assistant and writing reviewer. So if you're writing docs, it will help you write the docs in a quicker way and then also review for like grammar mistakes and whatnot. And there's just a lot more that's happening there that it's just we're seeing chat GPT like functionality be integrated into everything right now, which is honestly huge, right? And so I feel like all of these main platforms, Zapier, Coda, all these things are like, how can we get AI into our product as soon as possible? Because it just makes things easier. And so I feel like
yeah,
this Coda upgrade, it was just like it was going to happen as soon as everything else was happening. It was going to happen, and it was just the next step. But it's still a really big quality of life thing that could just make it a lot easier to build and create and use your own data within those documents.
yeah. It's interesting. They're also part of this announcement that they put out. Also talks more about focus on teams or sorry, company-wide tools,
Yeah.
not just like one team doing their thing. I wonder if there are, overall companies are expecting the average person to be a little bit more technical and be able to incorporate some of these workflow tools and automation tools. And that's like at least some base level. You can't just know, the old resume line. I know Microsoft Office. Like you can't just say that anymore. You have to now have at least some like automation. I need to know Coda or Notion or Zapier or Airtable
Yeah.
to be a base
Or
like
like how to prompt with a
employable
chat
person.
GPT, stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
if you think about like, hey, write a 6-page memo on what we're doing this week, you can then give it to like an assistant or something and give them that doc and say, okay, here's how you use the prompting features. Now with AI, prompt out this 6-page memo, and it's gonna
yeah,
be, you would think, significantly faster and
yeah.
save a lot of man hours.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and another note we have here: this two-way sync, pushing things back into other systems and out. It's an interesting way to start the transition away from other systems, right? If
And to
you
keep
can
you in
read and
Coda
push and pull,
longer.
and
Yeah.
then eventually everyone who was onboarded in Salesforce is now onboarded in Coda, means you can spend a tenth the price and use Coda to manage your CRM instead of something like Salesforce. And so it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see how that changes anything. But I think for now they're just trying to make everyone's lives a little easier.
Yeah. David, what do we have going on in the wearable space? We have Notable, Meta, Tab. What's going on there?
Yeah. So I'm really curious how this is all shaking out. I've been following along on the Humane AI Twitter for a long time. They were kind of secretive about what they were working on. Basically, the phone without a device, right?
Okay.
No
Yeah.
handheld. Keep your hands free. Like
Yeah.
truly hands free, you can do things. They came out a little earlier with a demo on a TED Talk, I think, of answering a phone call using your hand as the screen. Interesting concept. Kind of this phone on your lapel always being on, watching and interacting with the environment.
So that's what it is. The dependent is a lapel that's just kind of always listening to you and storing that information.
I think their take is more about being like a phone, but something that's like powered by AI. It's all speech recognition. It's all kind of aware of what's going on.
Okay.
The very AI version of this is this rewind dependent. So
Okay.
Rewind AI came out a little while ago, much fanfare. I think they've raised like hundreds of millions of dollars at nearly $1 billion valuation. Some
Wow.
huge ARR multiple is what I last saw on Twitter. Their whole concept, and I know people who use it really well, is it's an application. I think they started on desktop. They may have a phone version as well. It basically records your screen and indexes everything you're looking at with AI, so you can ask questions about basically everything that's happened on your computer, which
Just
is
like you were asking Coda documents, what's in your document? You're
yeah,
asking it what's in your life.
this is everything, right? Like imagine,
Wow.
you one time read a tweet about a bubble tip and you're like, oh, what was that thing that where I reversed the Z index, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. It like is indexing all this information. And so they came out with an IRL version, not just installed on your phone, not just installed on your computer, but basically a pendant that you wear around your neck. And I can't tell if it has a camera on it or just microphone, but it's listening, it's understanding what's happening around you. And then you can index it and ask questions, which is interesting. The take on Twitter was what you're going to wear a wire forever now, right?
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
an FBI informant of what's happening. It could be really interesting. My mind immediately went to like elderly folks. Like, how do you track what they're doing, where they're
Oh,
doing, what's
wow.
going on?
Or
Have they taken their meds?
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, like
People.
all of this.
Wow.
What's going on
That's
in their
interesting.
mind?
Yeah.
An interesting idea. But I don't want to like I. If you remember when Apple came out with their Vision Pro not that long ago, there was like a part of this promo video where a dad is like playing with his kids
Yeah.
in the Apple
Yeah.
Pro, and you're like, you don't want to experience life through the glasses of Apple.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like if there's a camera. I don't think there is, but
I don't
eventually
think
there
there
will.
is. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The
yeah,
camera
it
is.
says what you say in here, so I'm guessing there is no camera. Eventually, there will be a camera,
Yeah.
and it will take all these photos and just have this life on rewind.
Yeah.
And that's why they're called rewind, right?
And Meta's getting into this. I think Meta is actually, like I love the Apple Vision stuff. Like I'm really interested in checking that out. But I think Meta's taking the actual practical approach of they have the Ray-Ban stuff that they just came out with,
Yeah.
which has a camera and kind of like an AI chatbot that can help you, do things in real time using AI, given these Ray-Bans you can get with it. And then also, what is that? The Oculus, and how you can kind of have like podcast conversations and or just video conversations in like an avatar like
Yeah.
way, feel like you're talking to each other in a real room, which I think both of those things, they're priced at a well priced market for the volume of the masses, right? The quality isn't as high as like an Apple Vision, but I think in the beginning you need to get the masses. This is only as good as the other person, and if how many people can actually afford an Apple Vision. So like I
Yeah.
love that Meta is taking the approach of like, all right, volume for all, let's get everyone in on this. And I think it could be really cool, a world where you have 20 team members across the world and you kind of all meet in a virtual conference room and it feels like you're in there in person. Like that's working from home, remote, next level. That
Yeah.
feels like it's not too far away now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I think like my gut says these are marginal improvements and mostly cool than functional. I don't think these are 10x, 50x improvements on your life. When the cell phone came out, like the iPhone, everything changed, right? Like it was a dramatic improvement. I think these are the first. This is like the car phone of the cell phone. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was neat. You could take a call in your
Yeah.
car. Like if you had roadside trouble, you could get some help. There will be a wearable or some tech Neuralink version that, is doing everything for you. I think there's something coming that will be maybe not this year, maybe in the next 5 years, that really changes something much bigger than what we're just seeing with
Yeah, I
Ray-Bans.
think this is just the start. Clearly, AI is being integrated into every software application and soon to be our lives with these pendants and glasses
Yeah.
and everything else. And it's a little scary, but it's also, I think, going to be for the better in some ways too. And with change, there's always pluses and negatives.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Would you wear any of these?
I would. I
Yeah.
would.
The glasses, the
I would try everything, but I'm not going to do it just to do it. If it's actually going to help me be more functional and a better person in life, then that's kind of what I would align to. So I
Yeah.
don't know if this still seems like a little early for me, but I would definitely try and see how it could be beneficial.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think in my dream life, I'm never on a computer. Right? Like I don't want to have to be at a desk. I don't want to have to be at a computer. I'm moving around the world. I'm, at home maybe cooking, or I'm out at the store, or I'm getting at a coffee shop,
Yeah.
and things are kind of happening, and I can control and orchestrate through these
Yeah.
devices. I can check it. I can turn the glasses on to live view or something, and I
Yeah.
can see what's going on. Maybe this is the beginning of that. Maybe
Yeah.
that's still 10 years away.
No, I think it's pretty close, but I'm excited to follow along with this wearable series. It seems like there's a lot of money being thrown behind it
Yeah.
right now, and now is kind of the time where we're probably going to see it explode in the next year. So that's exciting. Talking about exploding, Framer raises their Series C, which is a $27 million round. Now, it feels like Framer is just getting hot, and it's just like the latest tool, but they've actually been around since 2015, and they started as a high fidelity design and prototyping tool, and then in 2020, and then in 2021 there was a shift towards simpler design methods, and then in 2022 they created a professional site builder, and that's how I know Framer, as a
Yeah.
professional site builder that utilizes AI to make it really easy to build awesome websites really quickly. And I feel like there's a lot of momentum with Framer right now, especially with the website builder. And with this $27 million round, I only see it exploding even more. So, it's competing with that of like a Webflow, a Wix, all that kind of stuff. We're continuing to see this market explode, and I think we continuously will. But I think Framer just makes it so easy to make a really beautiful website for desktop, tablet, and mobile with their AI features that it's really hard to compete against. And I'm really excited to see, what they do next.
Yeah. I mean, Framer is a great tool to build websites in. It is simple. It's easy to get started. But, a lot of these tools are also easy. And it's hard to say which tool to use for certain jobs. And I'm going to ask Andrew from the head of design over at FlutterFlow. I can't say that. It's like a tongue twister. Who their ideal customer is, or what their ideal use case is, because it's important to know, when should I really be using this tool versus that tool? Is there something that does better or not? It's kind of becoming a little confusing when to learn something new.
Speaking of Andrew from FlutterFlow, why don't we bring him onto the show? So Andrew is the head of design at FlutterFlow. He started there a long time ago. He was originally running his own design agency, and then they hired him to do part-time work, and then there was a transition, and then he's been head of design for a long time now. So let's welcome Andrew to the show. Welcome to the show, Andrew. This is This Week in No Code. We're stoked to have you. Each week, we kind of talk about one no code tool. And while we discussed FlutterFlow in our very first episode of the 4.0 and how exciting that was, it's cool to now have you here to join us to kind of discuss it a bit more and just generally discuss you a bit more. And I think the thing of the day is, do you have two jobs? Are you head of the design agency and head of Flutter?
Yeah, so I have my own agency, but I don't work there anymore, or I don't work full time. I have my own team. Chase, who's my partner in that agency, is running it. We have a team of 4 designers, and they are up and running. We have a sales guy that just does awesome work. And so, yeah, that agency, Kaleo, is my agency. I started it 10 years ago, started hiring people 4 years ago. That's how FlutterFlow found us. They found us as an agency. And then I sort of joined the team once they got funding to sort of help them grow. So yeah, the agency is up and running. Kaleo takes on projects. We do mostly product design. We've been dabbling in FlutterFlow development now because we get a lot of those leads. But yeah, it's been fun. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. I was gonna say, I mean, it was kind of like the best of both worlds, almost like everyone's dream of, hey, you run your own agency, but also be the head of something somewhere else. You know, like that's pretty cool.
It's definitely awesome. I mean, we've had a lot of really great clients over the years. One of them just got acquired recently, and they asked us to come on back when they were sort of starting out, and we were like, we don't mind helping, but like we enjoy working on multiple projects at once. FlutterFlow is like the first one where I was like, I'm very passionate about this field and the problems we're trying to solve as a team for this product development cycle. Like everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Designers, developers, product managers, teams, startups, enterprise, doesn't matter. So it's been a lot of fun to sort of be a part. And the developers are so good. I mean, man, the FlutterFlow development team, like I would hand them designs and they would like do it, picture perfect. And I was like, oh, wow, I've worked with hundreds of developers and very few times do I get that back because, design to development is really hard. So
usually something's a little off. When they get into the development side, they're like, well, let me just cut this corner here. It'll be easier. I don't need this UI animation so much. Let's do this. That's pretty exciting. So you're building you're designing FlutterFlow pretty much all day, except for when you talk to us. But you've got to be pulling on this experience from designing apps from other people, like the tool you wish you had. Is that what you're thinking about when you're designing this?
So when I'm designing the platform itself, I mean, how many people actually get to develop or design a tool that they work in every day? Like I've used, Sketch, Photoshop, all these design tools, Framer, even back before Framer sort of pivoted and went to this like no code website stuff back when they were like a prototyping tool with code, like I use them. And it's always been a dream of mine, obviously, to like design the tool that I work in.
You've seen this like life cycle of no code and the graveyard, I guess, of no code products that work, didn't work, and you can see kind of where this is going. Do you find that like the early no code tools were fairly basic in what they could do? It was really great for like the novice who didn't want all those buttons, but they needed to build something. So they would build, with WordPress or Wix or,
totally
Edge something. And now you're like, great, more people are accepting no code as their framework, as their like, I'm building an app that's going to go live with thousands of users on, a no code tool. And so you need it to be more complicated. But and we talked about this last week with the folks over at Glide. Like we have this balance of complexity, time to get started. How do you think about, like, you have all this experience working with these tools? How do you build for you and also the person who like has never built a website before in their life?
Yeah, it's hard. Part of being a product designer, because I'm sort of a product designer first, obviously. I'm not like, we have a lot of builders, and I feel like you guys are also builders. Like you enjoy doing no code stuff and building products and helping people build. And I try to be a builder, but I'm a hacker, really. Like I'm a design hacker. So I'll figure out a way to do something. I'll be like, I'm just going to go with that. Okay, cool. But I'm a designer first. And so part of product design is empathy, or, understanding your users and doing research, which amazing. FlutterFlow has all these users we can get research from and feedback from. And we've gotten some really great sort of conversations going on how do you do this? How do you make it better? But it's like, how do I take what they're saying to me and apply it to the whole product and not be like, this is the way I think it should go? We have to be super intentional because there's many users of FlutterFlow.
Last week we heard that Glide's kind of ICP, their ideal customer, is a business enterprise that wants to build a spreadsheet kind of app. Do you guys have the main focus customer? I know you have lots that use it, but who's the one that takes the crown?
This is a great question. It's a very pointed question. I had to run it by my CEO.
Are you allowed to ask? Yeah,
I had a very the core.
Yeah.
This may or may not filter people from using this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had to run this by Abel because I was like, hey, this is what I think that it is. He was like, hey, look, it's anybody that wants to build applications, right? It could be a freelancer, it could be an entrepreneur, it could be an agency, it could be a huge team at a bank, at an international bank or an airline. It could be anybody and the thing, oh man, I could go on and on and on about this simple question, but it's for anybody that wants to develop products faster, cut down the time that it takes to get an actual application, a production level application to market to the users, right? There have been tools, right, that have allowed you to build no code products for like websites and even web apps, right, for the last 4 or 5, 6, 10 years, like Webflow 10 years, Bubble 10 years, WordPress. 50% of websites are built on WordPress. That's wild to me.
It's crazy.
But it's sort of that handoff as well, right? Like you can't invite people to your code base and say, hey, update the copy and then I'll deploy. Like that's another thing that WordPress brought and that no code tools bring is this collaboration that's possible. So that's another thing that FlutterFlow does. It's another benefit, right? We're sort of democratizing that. Instead of saying, here's the design files, developer, go develop it, and then you're in GitHub and you're communicating with other developers and trying to push stuff. Now I as a designer can help the developer get to that point. The developer can work in FlutterFlow if they want. They can continue that process.
So we got the official tagline from the CEO. What was your answer? I'm curious. Was yours different?
Because that was a pretty open answer. Like, what I was thinking is, 30 to 40. They know a little about how to use computers, but they've never been a developer before. They wear white or black t-shirts. Like, what are we getting at here?
Yeah. I mean, again, FlutterFlow is not niched down to a user group. Really, okay, I'll give you my answer. Is that okay? All right. Everybody is still in the answer. But for me, even when I came to Abel and Alex, or like when Abel and Alex came to me and they told me about this great idea, I was learning Swift at the time because I was fed up with handing off designs and then taking 6 months to get sort of a turnaround on that. Yeah, exactly. And then it's 50% of what we were designed. And it was like, okay, this is a pain. And then my clients, I was working as an agency. So clients are disappointed. And, there's a lot of just stuff that I didn't have control over. I couldn't put my hands into. So when they came to me, I was like, look, Figma sort of ruined the design game. Sketch and Figma sort of came in about 2015. Sketch was a little before. It was like 2014, 2015. I mean, when I first designed products, I was in Photoshop before their artboard feature. I was like turning on and off layers in Photoshop, which is terrible. It's a terrible user experience. It wasn't built for product design. So I sort of compare it to that. I compare FlutterFlow to the early days of Figma, where Figma came in, they said, look, Sketch is only for Mac users. So when you want to hand stuff off, it's very hard. You literally had to send a design file to somebody. We use Sketch and InVision for a long period of time. Now you can do it all in Figma. And not to say that FlutterFlow is trying to be Figma, but like for that part of the product development cycle, Figma just like blew it up. And obviously they've done quite well with their acquisition from Adobe. FlutterFlow has the opportunity to do that for development, where you open up those development pathways from design to product management to developer, and you can come in and actually develop real products now and launch them faster because your developers and designers can communicate right there. And if you need to update the border radius on a button, your designer can do that. No need for your developer to do that, right? So I would say for me, it's like teams and then entrepreneurs that, FlutterFlow is not really a no-code tool. It's a visual development platform. So
let me give you my external read on what I've gotten so far. I haven't used FlutterFlow yet, but I would like to use FlutterFlow. I think you guys are progressing at a great speed, faster than some others, right? From what I know, ignorantly, FlutterFlow is really good for mobile applications, pushing native applications, Android and iOS. Fantastic. The best in the game. It's also, I love how you have the new features for, building your own QA testing, stuff like that. That's awesome. The collaboration aspect, maybe a little late to the game, but it's there, and that's what you need for these big teams, right? Really happy to have that. I don't know if it's really meant for desktop, right? And also the lack of having its own built-in database and then kind of requiring, well, you have a database and then you can open it up to like a super base with your native plugin and then get even beyond that with APIs. But all of those things have their own complexities and learning curves. And so when I think about FlutterFlow, I'm thinking the baseline to learn is higher than most of the others, but it's advantageous to do so if you're looking for a native mobile application. And that's kind of where it's like, if you're looking for native mobile app, generally, it's probably really worth it, but maybe not there yet for just across the board web apps and just trying to get started for the first time.
Yeah, that's a good read. We don't do a good job of promoting the benefits of the entirety of the product. We just updated our landing page where, you can build once, deploy everywhere, right? So you can build web applications in FlutterFlow and deploy them to the web directly from the builder. You can, deploy to App Store and Play Store from FlutterFlow, which is awesome. That in and of itself is amazing, right? Like, you had,
that's really cool.
In order to do that before was like, download Xcode. All right. 2 days later, implement all of this stuff. Like,
this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's probably like one of your superpowers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Being able to do that. I mean, I can literally build an app in a day, set up my test flight, and deploy it to the App Store and have it on my phone by the afternoon. It's absolutely amazing. So
that's cool.
FlutterFlow is built on Flutter, which is cross-platform application or developer framework. Sorry. So you can build web applications in FlutterFlow. Flutter is improving in that sort of web deployment and web structure, right? Just like Angular and React were back in the day, probably like 8 years ago.
And you can export that code, right?
And you can export that code. You're never tied in. So sort of what can you do on FlutterFlow? I think that answers it. You can deploy everywhere. You can also build Chrome app. You can build Chrome extensions in FlutterFlow, which is awesome. I know you can do that in Bubble. It's really cool that you can have that one code base. Once I exit FlutterFlow, I'm building. I already have an idea for Chrome extension, website, mobile app, everything. So, but the other question that you had, the whole back end. Yes, you're right. We don't have any integrated or FlutterFlow centric backend because we don't want to hold you back. So you bring your backend, you can hook up REST APIs, you can hook up any backend through our API connector. You can natively hook up Firebase and Supabase. We've had a lot of people ask for Xano. We want you to own the code. We never want you to be tied to the platform. And that also goes into like the democratization of development, right? We don't want you to be held back.
Before we get into a build, I got a couple quick questions to ask, like just general capabilities, right? So we know you can open up to the REST API. We know that it's web and mobile now. We know that you can have collaborators within it. All right. You can open up to multiple databases. You can export your code. The pricing is pretty fair across the board. You can get started, I think, for free, but then you start paying. But it's it's pretty fair across the board. I think generally there's a higher learning curve, but I think you get a lot of power with that and a lot of flexibility with that. In terms of, like database speeds, that depends on the database you're doing. CRUD speeds, like if you have a listing that you're bringing in, like say you're working with a data set of like a couple 100,000, right? And you need to do some filtering within that to get, a list of 20 objects or something like that. Like that's good performance in FlutterFlow, right? You're not hanging up in any way or anything like that.
I haven't dealt with that many records quite yet. But it's all about the database. So there are things that you can do to sort of optimize that. And FlutterFlow provides you those opportunities out of the box, whether it's caching or refreshing cache, querying stuff with infinite scroll. So there are ways where you can get around those issues.
And then do you see anyone, like what is the market for like professional Flutter devs that are like, hey, I've learned this, I put in a couple of years and now I'm selling my services as a Flutter dev. Is that there? Is that growing? Is that a big market, small market, up and coming?
Yep. I mean, I would say we are just about to relaunch our like FlutterFlow expert program. And the first go around, I think we built it in FlutterFlow like 2 years ago. We had maybe 50 applicants.
Okay.
We have over 600 applicants this time around. So, and FlutterFlow has more than doubled our user growth this year. I mean, you can read it on our website. So I'm not giving away anything.
What
but,
is that?
You know,
then?
yeah, we're at 350,000 users at the beginning of this year. So
Okay.
like 2022, go back and look at our year in review. We had 350,000 users.
Yeah.
We're at 800,000 users right now. And we're on pace to hit almost 1 million users by the end of the year, more or
Awesome.
less.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if everything goes as planned, which is awesome. I mean, dude, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's incredible. Like we were always thankful for the people that are coming to the platform and then sticking around and using the product as well. They're not just signing up and leaving. You know, they're
Yeah.
actually building products, which is really cool. So,
And then do you guys offer templates?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Templates. Okay.
I'll talk
What
about it. I'll talk about
What
it.
about plugins?
There are no plugins per se currently. I think this is sort of an app. We just launched our marketplace V2. So that being, people can now create seller profiles where they can
Okay.
make money and post stuff for sale. So part of that initiative is to open up sort of that either plugin or apps or something like that in regards to allowing developers to actually create stuff that you can plug in. You can plug in custom code whenever. So our marketplace currently, they have like custom audio widgets or a ChatGPT integration, and you
I
can
see.
basically just go and utilize that in your application.
Gotcha.
But there's no like plugin per se at this point. So,
Gotcha.
or apps, yeah.
And
But
then
we're in
my
the-
last fire question for you, my fire off. What do you think is the most successful app built with FlutterFlow? Like, what is FlutterFlow's successful example of, hey, this team raised $1 million or has 500,000 users, et cetera, with FlutterFlow?
I think a perfect example of consumer-facing products is the app of the year, AB Money. They're from Russia. It was the top education application built in that region. They generated like $1 million in-app purchases through their
Right.
FlutterFlow app. So I'd say that
Okay.
one's a really good one as well.
Cool.
So, I mean, with 60 million users, it can scale. You know, and
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
build it for a large scale B2C use case
Yep.
and not be worried.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of bringing your own database is you can really
Exactly.
find a database
Yeah,
for
you
that.
don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about
It's
it.
the app's
And you,
memory that's running on the phone.
Yeah.
The computer running on the phone.
If you're able to, I'd love for you to share your screen and maybe just show us around something, or let's build something, or just get a little bit more familiar with it.
Let's see. Share screen.
Yeah.
Don't show these tips again. Hopefully I can do it. All right. So also, I'll put in a little plug because for those listeners, right? For the listeners that that are on, or even people watching this later on, if they want to see somebody live build, Will Hobbick, a member from our growth team, and myself, we host a live stream every Thursday at 9 a.m. Central, and we just build. Like it's sort of a tutorial, but it's like we're just sort of answering questions and saying, let's build this complex UI. We built we sort of built this application, but with some notifications and the iOS interaction for like adding files and stuff. So we just built that in like 15, 20 minutes. So we can do that. I think an intro to FlutterFlow may be would definitely be a base or a good base. So
let me just quickly describe what we're seeing here. It's a beautiful picture. It's an inbox. On the left-hand side, we have a list of recipients, and then on the right-hand side, we have a conversation, right? And then on the very left, we have a little minimal menu. This looks very much like what you would see at an enterprise level chat application, maybe like a Slack or a project management dashboard, right? You're showing us multiple viewpoints of your desktop all the way down to your mobile, how it's breaking, and you see a live preview of this. And then the left-hand side, we have commonly used elements. So we have things like text and columns and rows, things that I assume you could drag and drop onto that canvas.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. It's the intuitive nature. I love Webflow, like for that reason. You can just drag and drop stuff in, that's my other no-code tool of choice, but so we have this, and we have like common widgets, which are just like Flutter widgets. These are your layout things, some of your base elements like text, icons, YouTube players, checkboxes, switch tiles, audio players, Google Maps. We have Lottie animations,
There's
Rive
seemingly
animations.
a widget for everything that you need that you can drag and drop over.
Yep. And then the form elements and stuff. And I'll I'll build something. But I do want to, give that. So we have that. We also have components, which these would be your custom components, just like in Figma, right? We have I don't know how much time you guys spend in Figma, but if you have components, you could build them out.
In
Anything
Bubble,
more
we call
than
these reusable elements.
Yeah. So
Do you
anything
get
more than
variants on these components as well?
not necessarily. So I'll show you one of my favorite things in FlutterFlow as a designer.
Okay.
And it's in our theme tab. So whenever you're building out a design system, right? I've done this a billion times in Figma or Sketch. You have like elements that are atoms, right? You have like buttons and text fields, maybe things that are just like automatically in there. Then you have components, which are cards or dashboard, or like I made this whole thing a component so I could reutilize it on multiple pages. Right. So on desktop, I could be side to side. On mobile, it could transfer to another page, stuff like that.
I love that you have the pages on the top left and you don't actually need to switch to a different page, which takes some loading time and all that stuff. It's just an instant click. You go to that page.
I agree. You can, if you don't like this, you can always change it. You could, I think it's this one, expanded view. If you wanted an expanded view for your widget tree.
Yeah, your tree, it's kind of a list of all of your elements, the hierarchy for such. Is that a drag and droppable thing to like bring into different containers and whatnot?
Yeah, you can drag and drop stuff from here. So we'll drag like this little guy up here. Yeah.
Great.
And you can do it from the canvas or from the widget tree.
So you're quickly adjusting the positions, bringing it from the last to the first, in the column or whatever it may be, things like that. Beautiful.
Yeah. Same thing over here. And one thing that really, it was a blocker for me, just basic FlutterFlow building, which goes back to Flutter, was layout. Like, how do I get something to look the way I want? And if you've ever used auto layout in Figma, it's similar, but it's built in. Instead of having to set that up, it's already built into Flutter. So rows, whenever you have a row, that's like a flex horizontal. So
side by side.
Yeah, side by side. Anything you want to stack side by side, use a row. Same thing like down here. Anything you want to stack vertically, you'll use a column or a list view. If you want to create a backend query on that or an API call or something, list views are more extensible there. But yeah, that's that. We also have storyboard mode, which if we had pages hooked up, you would be able to see multiple elements. We could do that right now. So
is that like a prototyping thing?
It's not a prototyping thing currently. That's my hope. That's my wish.
So what is it?
The output of
it's
the
a
visualization
flow
of the actions.
Yep, it's a visualization of
But
actions.
you can't actually click through it in a prototyping way yet?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can do that in preview. You can't do it here. So the goal would be that you could like select this element and then select an action and drag it over here. You can't do that right now, but you can view like your entire application in this multi-canvas view.
Okay.
And if we went back to like mobile, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, which is also nice to be able to see multiple things and how they are compared and contrast against each other in one place.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, this is interesting. Like if the workflows tab of Bubble was visual, instead of just a box of action steps. So this is you're changing a page. This looks like just pages though. Like if I click the button and
pages and components
turn blue,
gotcha.
It wouldn't move.
Yeah, pages and components is what.
By
you
the way,
see
that's
here.
a beautiful mobile look on your conversation. I mean, that's what you would expect from any kind of enterprise thing.
Yep.
Where are you getting your data source for that? Like, how are you fetching that data?
Yeah, so this would be Firebase. I'm just a Firebase user. That's like the one out of the box with FlutterFlow, and it's the easiest to implement. And I try to reduce the amount of complexity it takes me. Like Supabase is also pretty easy, and APIs are pretty easy. But I don't have the time to sort of go over like all of this stuff. So I do the product. I also do. We'll go back here, over here, and we will touch on these templates. You asked for templates earlier, right? Yeah. So we have.
By the way, it looks great.
Thank you. We have over 170 component templates within FlutterFlow. And these component templates are anything from drop-down menus to navigations, right? This is
things that look great that people should just use for a jump start, and you don't need to rebuild the thing a million times over.
Exactly.
Are these
Like,
things users make, or
You make.
they're only built in?
they're only built in right now. They're built by me, but users can create these things for
For
themselves.
themselves. Okay.
So, and there's a few different ways you can do that. You can do that by creating components or creating templates. So
Yeah.
if you select something, like if I wanted this message bubble here, right, I could create this as a component, which would allow me to utilize this once and edit it in a single space, or sorry, utilize it multiple times, edit it in a single space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Similar to
Which is
Figma.
ideal because you don't want to be managing multiple things across the board, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to utilize this element across projects, I could, well, there's multiple ways I could do that, but I could create this as a template, as a UI template. So, and I'll bring this guy in. So we have
Cool.
this little like card over here. Oh,
Yep.
also one of my favorite things is as I drag it in, it adapts to my theme. So
Right.
I already have a design system, which I'll get into, but if I
Yeah.
toggle this, use my theme on,
Gotcha.
well, then it'll automatically adjust
Beautiful.
to my theme and to the light dark mode settings that I have already
Creating
in my
styles.
project.
Yeah.
So no matter what I bring in, like all of these are built with that in mind. I
Yeah.
actually had to spend the first half of this year rebuilding all of the elements that I had, like over 100 components into our new themes. So,
Yeah.
but they're super cool. I love them because it allows me to build faster. And it sort of mimics the way that I would build in Figma. So,
Yeah.
so we have all these templates. We also have page templates. And then
Okay.
these are, all of these templates are available as components as well. So if I come back over here and I wanted to create an empty list view for this widget, right? Say this is a backend call and I want to create an empty list view.
Well, right now we're seeing just temp data. Is it temp data? Is that placeholder data?
Yes,
What is that?
that's all placeholder. It's not hooked up to a database. I have it in a place where we could almost hook it up to the database.
Yeah.
I mean, we could hook it up to the database, but I'll just showcase
Yeah.
this. So you just add a component, right? And say I want list view empty state. Well, that's a search. So let's say empty. So I have this empty list view.
Okay.
Right? It's just a component. I'll name it here. And then we automatically get this here. It applies our sort of theme. I can adjust it. I'm not held back. It's not like a drag and drop template where I can't edit it.
Yeah, you can adjust everything.
Yep. Everything I edit in here. And then this is one of my favorite features, which I'll get into the details. But if you select like your buttons, we have this thing called theme widgets. And it's like the base components, those atom elements, or maybe a small molecule element within a design system that you can change and update. So I can come over here and I can change my button style, and the text is staying the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can preview it. When we implemented this, literally we were in the UK at the beginning of the year on a team trip. And I was like, Abel, this is what I want. I really, really want this.
Button
and he
style?
was like, let's build it. No, just like this theme widget. This theme widget, it allows you to create sort of a design system for developers, implement them, and then if they're the same element, they can change them. So
yeah,
I have a single location where I can edit all of these sort of design system elements.
Okay.
So,
and this is shareable. And now we're looking at this long list of elements. They all look a little different. They're all named a little different. They probably have hover states, click, press, do these certain things in certain scenarios, widths, heights, borders, shadows, all of these things.
Yep.
You can set these up yourself and you can share them between your apps as well.
Yes, you can. So that's another thing. You can create these theme widgets once. You also get, so in this updated themes, you have text styles. You can upload custom fonts and custom icons, which make your apps look amazing.
Yeah.
We have colors. We give like 16 colors out of the box whenever you have a theme. And you can utilize them. They are sort of like constrained in the naming structures.
I love that.
Which is a little annoying. But but you can add as many colors as you want. You can add any custom colors. You could
Generate with
love
import.
that
AI.
import from coolers. I
Coolers,
love
Yeah.
that's what it
that
is. Coolers, yeah.
palette generator. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep. You can generate with AI.
Beautiful.
You could extract from an image. You could explore themes. So let's say
You know
we
what
wanted to.
really is standing out to me so far is you guys do so much work to help your users build great UI,
Yeah.
right? You are really putting them in a position to build good UI. And I don't want to knock on Bubble in this way, but Bubble doesn't do any of that. Bubble says, here's a blank canvas, go do it, right?
Yeah.
And as first time no coders, you're trying to learn dev for the first time, but then you also have to learn design for the first time. And those are two different things that are both really hard. And I feel like FlutterFlow, probably just given your background, is making it a really a lot easier to learn good design and to implement that good design in a faster way.
Yep. I'm hoping
Well,
so.
now, how much of what we're seeing now, the styles, the elements, the components, are like fresh out of the box, brand new account? This is what you
Yep.
see versus this is what you've set up.
Yeah. So the theme widgets are the only thing that are not out of the box.
Okay.
Only because I'm busy and I haven't taken the time. We have 12 themes we built out, and I'll show you that here. So we're in this preview theme. I have the chat details brought up, and all I'm going to do is toggle through some different
Right.
stylization, different color themes, right, for an application. And you can see that preview on the left. You can check it light and dark mode, make sure it looks good. And they have
Beautiful.
a primary and secondary font family. They have a color system that is custom, right? All of this stuff is out of the box. You get this.
Right. And it's just stuff you got to set up according to your design styles when you start with an
Yep.
application.
Yep. And you
They
can
do have
change
to
them.
be like the elements themselves need, it's the primary color, it's a secondary color.
Exactly.
So they know
Yeah.
when you change that number, it
Yeah.
moves.
And same thing like with primary text and secondary text
Yeah.
here. You know, we have primary and secondary background. So we make some of these implicit. The only two that are not implicit that I utilize constantly is this alternate and accent 4. So I've gone over this in a live stream, but I basically use this alternate as a neutral like divider color, like my border radius for buttons,
Yeah.
border radius for text fields. And this accent 4 is like my overlay. So I automatically utilize that. And if you set up your project like this, utilizing these colors like this, all of those templates are built on this structure.
Yeah.
All of the page templates also. So when we come over here, we don't have a login page for this application. So, and also all I'm doing to bring up this menu is pressing Command K. So press Command K, it comes up, and I'll just add page.
And this is like a command bar like you would see in like a linear, maybe superhuman.
Yep.
So this is a command center is a good way to call it, but kind of drive everything through keyboard shortcuts.
Yep. And we're in the process of improving this flow specifically and implementing more flows, but we'll get into that. But this gives me like the opportunity to just utilize a template for login, and we have the ability to use the template theme, which we don't want to do. We don't want that to be outside of our design system. So we'll utilize this theme or my theme. We'll just call this authentication.
So what's also impressive is the amount of pre-built things that you have access to out of the box.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's all beautiful and is awesome and like things you'd want to use, right? Which is also a big selling point. Like you think about, you want to use no code because it's faster, it's more convenient, you get the market quicker, but also you're doing a lot of the work for us of building these pre-built assets, right? Where normally you'd have to, create those, design those, all that kind of stuff, and it's saving you all that time.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like I will never design an authentication page again because I have like 12 templates that I can utilize that are different and that I like and that they're simple. They follow. If you search, like login page on Dribbble, they're literally all the same. I mean, it's like on desktop, it's big image, nicely designed form, buttons and text fields are the same width or whatever. It's pretty similar, different styles, different colors, maybe different font choices, but pretty similar.
Beautiful. Quickly, so we've talked a lot about designs. We've seen a lot of components. How does like actions work? Logic, right?
Yeah. That's a great question.
So you
So
click this button, you click this image.
yeah, you can basically apply an action to anything. We'll take
Okay.
this sort of messages thing because, like I said earlier, on desktop, I want this message thread to appear on the right.
Yeah.
But on mobile, I want this to transition to another page because that's a little more normal for a mobile application, right? You have chat details on a separate
Yeah.
screen.
So is
So
that something you're hiding at a certain width, or how are you
yeah,
approaching that?
yeah. So great question. We're going to open our action editor. So
Okay.
on almost any element within FlutterFlow, you have, a properties panel, which allows
Yep.
you to edit the style, the visibility, responsive, conditional, opacity. You can add padding, an alignment. There's a list of sort of stylization properties based off of the widget you have selected. But one of
It
the
seems
things,
like you can pretty much style this however you want. You have full
yeah,
control. What I'm
yep,
really interested in is that conditional.
yeah,
Now in Bubble, conditionals are like a really big thing. You use them all the time. Is that
yep.
similar to this? Like
I,
conditional is like this user is logged in, show this or do this or
yeah,
present this kind of thing.
yes, exactly. You can do that totally through this conditional. It could be visibility. It could be a parameter, right? So we
Yep.
have. Let's go ahead. What we'll do here.
Like get data from URL is this, or get the
Yes.
thing from URL, this param, and show
Yep.
this
Yep.
from. Okay,
So
beautiful.
I'll finish the action flow first, and then
Okay.
we can talk about. And like I said, 10 minutes, not enough time.
Yeah,
like
we
we're
gotta
like
finish up here.
25 now.
Yeah, we gotta finish up here
uh,
soon, but
but
we're
yeah,
just
I'll
excited
do
as
the
you are.
action. I'll do the action.
Yeah.
So basically, you can select any action, right? Come over here. You get a singular view of a single action here, which is really nice if you're creating records because we have like a visual selector from the screen. Anyways, I'll get into that.
So
Watch
now
the live
what
stream.
you're looking at here is you have the screen, the item you're clicking. On
Yep.
the right, there's this bar of all of these actions. So while you're deciding what to do, you can see that you're working on this element.
Yep. And then we clicked into sort of this action visual editor. So
It's
we have
very
like
visual. It's like a
a logic
Zapier
builder.
kind of,
Yeah.
here's this step, action 1, you're gonna navigate, and then on this step, true or false logic builder.
Yep. Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a logic step to say if screen width is greater than 1271, which is my desktop
Breakpoint.
mobile breakpoint or desktop tablet breakpoint, I want to navigate to another screen or I want to do X, which
Now,
right
when you
now we don't.
navigate to another screen, are you gonna get a page load on that, or is it just kind of like a show and hide thing?
It's a page load.
Yeah.
So it's a route, I guess, in
Yeah,
Flutter.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just copy this action and then delete it. I wish we had a cut, but anyways, we'll just do this, paste. So we'll set up this conditional, single condition, and we have all of these, there's a lot of sources here.
Mhm.
One of them, like a conditional value, if then else, right? That's a lot of fun.
Yep.
So if we want, like I have a similar structure in another application where if it's desktop, show show this sidebar. If it's a tablet, show a modal overlay. If it's mobile, transfer to the next page. So that's a lot of fun. But we'll just set up a single condition. We'll do the first value as screen width 100% is greater than or equal to 1270. All right. And so if it's greater than, actually we want this. If it's false, we go to the mobile screen. If it's true, we would like load that data into that sidebar. We'd basically
Okay.
change a page state or an app state, right?
Mhm.
Where we would pass that data in.
You
We've done
said
this
app
on
state, so there's like an app-wide state that is like
yes,
temporary storage, temporary memory for that
temporary
app-wide?
or permanent. Yeah,
Yeah,
temporary or permanent. So
beautiful.
yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff. State management is something that was, highly asked for
Right.
from the developer community. And
We're used to page level, but
yep,
app level is really awesome.
yeah, exactly. And you have component level as well. So,
Yeah.
if this was a component or if this was a desktop, and I've gone over this in our live stream, so I won't touch on it here, but you basically have a backend call, right? Or like a session reference or a chat reference, I guess, at a page level. and you'll just load in, then you'll have a list of backend queries, and you can just load in those queries, right? You can select this one, query shows here, select this one, query shows here, show a selected state here with conditional if then else statements, all sorts of fun stuff. That is really cool and powerful. So that's logic. Yeah, or like action logic. There's also like hooking up data. So if we come over here, I want to see if I can, sorry, I'm going to try to replace with list view. Okay. Well, we'll do a backend query on this little guy. And all I'm going to do is do a chat messages. So I'm going to select this database icon on the right.
Yeah.
Add a backend query. I'm going to query a collection. And again, we have all sorts of things, right? API calls.
API calls, Agolia, document reference, document from reference.
We're just going to query.
And these are tables in your
list.
Firebase database.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we see a collection, a chat list.
Yep.
And you're ordering it. You can filter it. It's all very visual. You're not writing any kind of code in that way yet.
Yep. And then we get this view of like the top level item. And I'll zoom in. Sorry, I know it's, or maybe I'll go to mobile, right? We'll go down to mobile. We get this top level item, and then we can just hook stuff up. So here we'll say.
So you selected a text element, and now you're configuring the data source behind that text element, removing the placeholder and actually configuring data there.
Yeah, really what I want to do is I want to do a document reference. So I want to reference this. The way I set up my database was because it's a NoSQL, right? Database, like Firebase is NoSQL. So you're doing references from one to another. So I'll do this users, and I'll do this chat list of users references. I'll do item and index, and I'll just do the first one. Okay. We'll make that a single time query. And then I have a chat reference here and a user reference. And I'll just, that way I can grab the user's sort of photo URL.
You're looking at the user's fields from that table now, and then can use those fields with,
And then I can just connect easily there.
And so when you're making these connections, then we start to see the field names come in once those connections are placed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. Same thing. We can set up our, I think in our chat list document, we have a last message sent time. Yeah. And then we can set up a date time format. You know, you get all these options. You can also do a custom option, which there's a bunch of date time formats if you wanted something specific.
Familiar.
Yeah, it does.
You could do that. We could also do like a conditional visibility here.
Relative built in. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's a function that's pretty cool. Instead of just if it's more than 60 minutes, show hours. If it's more than 24 hours, show days. If it's more than 2 days, show the date. Like that. Yeah. That's annoying.
That was awesome. That was excellent. I appreciate you going through it in that level of detail. As you can see, you can do anything, right? And we also saw like, you know, you had some bug stuff up there letting you know if there was any problems with what you're doing that you need to do that before you deploy it. We saw version control stuff like collaborators up there. You know, I think just a general takeaway from me, and then I'll pass to David, is beautiful UI. It makes it really easy to build beautiful UI. And the amount of pre-built things that are beautiful that you can use right away was way more than I expected, which was really awesome. So across the board, I really love that and the flexibility that you have in your design every step of the way. David, what was one of your takeaways?
Yeah, I think it looks nice, easy to use, big buttons, easy to see my options. Fields are broken out as I'm trying to write expressions. I think one of the things I always struggle with when I learn a new no-code tool is I have the framework of Bubble in my head. This is how I would do it, and I look for the translations.
Yeah.
Yep.
In Flutter, it seems a bit more obvious what certain things are supposed to do than needing to figure out what that button means or what that option is. Walking through a really good example or watching someone build helps me see the icons, because I always find like an icon, I don't know what that is until I click it and push around. And so, you know, watching you go through it, go, oh, that's what that diamond thing looks like. Okay, I get, like, I'm starting to figure out what these things are. But it seems like once I'm in using it, it's going to be really easy to just keep working through it.
Yeah.
And everything looks great. Having a lot to build from will also speed up that time.
Yeah. Yep.
Good work,
Well, that's
Andrew. We give you an A+
hey.
on design.
Yeah.
Thank you
Like,
so much.
You know what? I think you should be a designer when you grow up.
you know what? I think you should get a raise. That's what I think. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah.
This was really awesome. That was honestly my first time going through FlutterFlow in that capacity. And
Cool.
as you could see, I was able to kind of just highlight what you were doing very simply, just given my general bubble knowledge. Because to David's point, it does translate really well, and it makes sense in that way. So thank you for doing that. We will be certain to send you this once it goes live or before it goes
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you for coming on today.
No problem at all. I really enjoyed this. I really love talking about just design products, no code, everything. So this was a lot of fun for me.
Great.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice job.
All right, my
Thanks so
friend. We'll
much.
catch you later then.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya.
Later.
That was awesome.
Wow.
That was
What a pretty looking application.
a pretty looking application.
Yeah.
Is that the first time that you looked at FlutterFlow like that?
No, I've tried to get in there before. This is like, again, like lots of things hidden under icons make it a little challenging to know what to do next.
Yeah.
And it's always an easy crutch to just say, do I want to learn another tool? I think, I had the same opinion that you did. This is a mobile builder first. And so,
Yeah.
I wanted to learn it in the sense of I want to build a mobile app, which is an option that you can use. I would also need to learn Firebase a little bit
Yeah.
more.
And the no
Uh,
SQL
yeah.
bit, it throws you for a little loop, and you don't have to do that. You can use Superbase to, I think, avoid that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even know the differences between the SQL and no SQL that well to really do it, but I just know that I'm used to an SQL setup in my relational structure.
Yeah. I think it'll be more about how you find fields between things. Yeah, it's not as structured.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that's great. I think we need a good use case for it. I think with every tool, just going in and poking around makes it tough to try learn. You need a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, are there courses? We didn't ask about this, but if there are courses, maybe we can find some and link them in the pod to help people.
Yeah. We can link to the live stream that he said he talked about. 700,000, 800,000 users and growing year over year. That
Wow.
100%, that's nothing to sneeze at, especially at that level.
Yeah.
Right. I still think the learning time is going to be greater than that of a bubble or a glide or anything, because you do need to learn another database and you need to connect it and you need to figure out this stuff. And it was a very visual interface and it made things a lot simpler than I was expecting, but it's still stuff that you need to know. And there's a lot more control, which is good and bad because you still need to learn that. So for those of you that are following along that, want to be involved in no code, or you have an idea that you want to build, but maybe like something like learning a FlutterFlow is just a little bit too complex for you right now, David and I have our own no code agency where we will take your idea and bring it to life in the next 4 to 8 weeks. It's called Studio No Code. You can go to studio-nocode.com. You'll see David and I right up there. David and I have been building MVPs for a long time now. We're on our I don't know. For this company, we're on our third MVP now, going on to our fourth, and it's been an absolute blast since starting this agency just a month or two ago.
Yeah, it's great. Let us know. We'll scope it out, get you slotted in, and we'll build something great. Help you build your business and your idea.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about our agency is, one, it's David and I, and then our producer Harrison, who's also helping us on the agency side. But, it's a small shop and we're also entrepreneurs. David is an ex-entrepreneur, had an 8-figure exit. I've sold a couple of companies myself. And so not only are we going to help you build the tech, but we'll help advise along the way of what makes sense for an MVP and helping you scope to really make it so it's as slim as possible to, get there quick so you can get the market and validate and whatnot. So a lot of things that we're doing at Studio No Code that I'm really proud of. And, advising founders is one of those things, should you be open to it. So you can check us out at studionocode.com. And also thank you to all of you that have left us a review. I'm going to keep that offer open. If you send or create a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I personally prefer Apple Podcasts, but Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then DM me the link or the screenshot of that review, and I'm going to send you something very special in return for helping us take this show to the next level and for giving us your feedback.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week in No Code.
We'll see you next week in No Code.